Hello, ladies. I'm Mrs. Sherman. Welcome to Homemakers Radio. I thought you might like to have a little company while you enjoy your homemaking on all those little things that you have to do at home. Maybe this will help you in cleaning one room or doing something else in the kitchen that you need to do. Everybody needs a little company nowadays, don't they? We're going through very difficult times. And I'm broadcasting from the manse and from captivity. So hello to all you fellow captives out there. I thought of a name for this, and that was captive living. That should be a column in on my blog, captive living, because we can learn a lot from being at home more than normal, more than usual. And one of the things that I decided to do was some videos on ordering your day and getting some kind of purpose into it. It's not normal for people to be isolated, but sometimes we are isolated, and I'm sure that we can all look back and see times when we've had a baby and we've been confined a little longer than normal, and how nice it was when we got to go out. And so I am going to give you some ideas today maybe on how you can make being home similar to going out by duplicating the things that you miss the most from out there in the home. And today I'm going to talk about the Apostle Paul. First of all, I'm going to divide this into sections, and that is your preparation, getting ready for the day. I'm broadcasting this late in the day because I was so slow today, and my notes, I never could get my notes in any kind of order, so I just decided to go ahead and broadcast anyway. And so I'm dividing it into three areas, and one is preparation, preparing yourself, and the other is the actual homemaking, so maybe a few things that you hadn't heard, or things that I've observed that I'm just going to share with you. And the other would be living with people and getting along with people at home and building them up and helping them in their purpose in life. And so today I'm going to read a little bit from a few things, but I'm going to talk to you a little bit first about being captives. And I remember so many times, and I believe it was especially in probably Ephesians 4, where the Apostle Paul said, "I, Paul, a prisoner of the Lord Jesus Christ." And I pondered, I looked that up and tried to find things pertinent to it and what it really meant, and I suppose really, I couldn't find anything particularly. Most people were focusing on the message that he had left them, walking the walk worthy of their calling, and most people in any kind of reference that I found, and anyone who was writing about it, any sermons about it, were mostly focusing on what he was telling them, how he was telling them to live worthily. And that phrase, "I, Paul, a prisoner of Christ," just made me think of how he had put the people, the captors, in second place of Jesus Christ. And so while we all feel we are prisoners of the state and we feel we're captives of the state, really, like Paul, we shouldn't give them very much credence, because it's Christ that we are prisoners of. It's Christ that we're captive to, because we no longer want to let the world rule us. We want to be ruled by Christ. And this is, to explain to you, some of you that aren't really familiar with this, this is the Bible, and the New Testament contains the last will and testament of Christ, and that is the will that he left for us so that we could do it. And later on, I might suggest that you create some kind of a testament for yourself of what you want in life, and what you would like to do, and how you would like for your descendants to live, and what you would like for them to follow. And it's very important to get familiar with the Bible, because it has a guide in there, and not to get too distracted by what's going on in the world. And I have mentioned several times not to get too involved in what the media says, because they never give you any hope. They just keep you in a constant state of personal upheaval and a feeling of unsettledness. So I'm broadcasting from the manse, from captivity, and if you're new here, I would like you to go over to my blog to listen to this. I've left a link for that, and then you can leave a comment. If you don't feel comfortable leaving a comment with the blogger, you can go to the left, find my email, send me an email, and I'll paste it on for you. And also, I'd like to know if you're going to accept my challenge that I have been putting forth since way back in July to come out of the other side of captivity, or even if you're remaining in captivity for some length of time, we don't know, do we? Come out stronger, come out smarter, come out more fit and healthier and more creative, and stretch yourself a lot, because now is the time, now is the time you can do something that you've always wanted to do. And you can do most things at home these days. You can learn a lot at home, increase your knowledge especially. So that is my challenge. Let's come out fitter, better, stronger, smarter, what am I going to say, more talented, and well, maybe even younger. Some of us might just turn younger just with all that effort, and there's less stress from the world when you're at home, especially if you don't let the world in. And I know with news media it can be a real problem, and it can change your direction in life, and especially with families that start getting discouraged. They start thinking that maybe they'd be better off doing something else or somewhere else, and it can really, in some ways, the state monitors everybody's movements, and they would like to mobilize people out of one state into a next. So we have all these people moving from California to Oregon, and all these people in Oregon moving to Texas, and it's a way of shifting people around that normally wouldn't go, and it's really such a tragedy for a lot of families, because you find a lot of young families, they don't want their children to grow up in a Marxist communist state, so they'll move to one that is more patriotic and more constitutional. And so then the ones that can afford will go, and the others will get left, and it separates families, and it's so sad. And also I've noticed something that, and I said, oh, let's not get involved in politics, but I just meant, don't have a steady diet of the news media. I have noticed that when these governors make speeches about lockdowns and masks, our governor especially, she said, she tried to come across as very sympathetic, and she said, I know it's hard, and know it will be hard, and she mentioned that we should report our neighbors if we're not wearing masks, or we're not home, or if we are, there's other things that she wanted us to report each other, and she says it's just like reporting someone for making too much noise in the neighborhood, and she was saying, and I know this is hard. Well, then I started looking for the speeches of other governors with a similar agenda, and they were making the same speech, and one phrase stood out to me, and that was, I know it will be hard. And they're trying to be so motherly, aren't they? So it can only make me conclude that they're getting that speech from their handlers, or whoever they're working for, because they're certainly not working for the people. But I looked up captives in the Bible. I've been going through trying to find captives and the different aspects of captives, and I did not find one single captive that was passive enough to ignore their captors. They all spoke to their captors quite boldly and educated them, and had them, they all were listened to by their captives. They didn't just passively accept everything. They corrected their captors, and they corrected these people that were taking power and using it wrongly. Remember Elijah saying some pretty stern words too. And so as I look through the Bible, I see that these captives were not accepting it because it's not God's will that we be captive. We cannot do His will. We cannot do, the last will and testament that I told you about. cannot show hospitality, and if you cannot raise your family and teach them the way that you want to, and if you cannot develop and if you cannot breathe, then you really can't do God's will, because God breathed into man the breath of life. And I think it's wrong to allow a captive to be abusive like that. And I noticed that there were some pretty bold people in the Bible who did not, although they accepted the fact that they were captive, they did not stand by. They also talked to their captors about in quite certain terms too. Now, a lot of us remember in the olden days there was a poem about the gilded cage, and do you remember it was about a bird in a gilded cage, and everybody felt sorry for this bird in the gilded cage and didn't realize it was in a it would rather be free, and I was thinking about how we're captives. So many of us are captives, so many of you, but you're captives in beautiful homes. So you're like the bird in a gilded cage. Yes, we have beautiful homes, and it's lovely to stay in them. And that's why I say be sure and arrange it and paint it and color it the way you want it. So I think that a lot of you are realizing, some of you that weren't used to being home are realizing how often you look at things, and how a color will affect you, or a shape or an arrangement will affect you. And now you're starting to realize that in order to be happy at home and to be content, you might have to change some things. You might have to go and rearrange some things, or if something in a room is bothering you the way it looks, to change it or to get rid of it. And so that's why I say, yes, we're captives and we're in gilded cages, but we would rather be free. But until everyone feels that they are able to do that, it's very important to create a life for yourself in the home. And I think the most important thing, I can't emphasize this enough because I've made so many mistakes with it, thinking, no, I won't get dressed today. I won't do anything to my hair today. I won't do anything. And then I'll wonder why, towards the middle of the day, I haven't accomplished anything, and I'm very, very bad mood, and I'm very lonely. And so I would just really emphasize to you to make sure the first thing that you do is to get yourself ready. Bathe and dress and fix your hair and use your skincare and do the absolute best you can, even if you, quote, aren't going to see anyone anymore, because the Lord God sees you, and it's an act of respect. And also, if you don't get dressed and you don't act like you're going to do something important, you're also reducing your expectations of life today. And we don't know if we're going to have tomorrow. I think it's very important to make today important and to make today shine. If you ever have kept a little watercolor journal, or kind of like a diary where you would record something pretty and paint it, you will understand how important it is to create an event for yourself in the day. And I know I've been reading some older things as I go through my old books and read old poets and old authors and find out what they would write about. I found out some of it was quite ordinary. And so I think it's really important. And as we've been home now for a while, everyone is starting to notice little things. They're starting to notice things they never had time for. We're always rushing in and out the door and go somewhere else. And now we're noticing little things. And as I go through my place, I start noticing some peeling wallpaper, or a wall that needs to be repaired, or something that needs to be cleaned. And I have more time for it now. I have, at least if I don't do it, I write it down. At least I put it on the list. I may not do it. And so many of the things, to not prepare yourself, to not prepare your body, is to say, I don't expect anything of the Lord today. I don't expect anything of this day. And a day is always a gift of the Lord. And so, the Bible says, this is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. It really does help you to rejoice when you do get dressed. That's from my experience, and of course not everyone is the same. I understand that. But as you get older, I think it's really important. And this is not for one age group of women. It's for all age group. If you've got little children at home, this is just, the message to you is just as important as to women who don't. In fact, you should be more motivated if you have children at home, because you're their teacher. You're the one that they're going to look up to. Your face is the one they're going to see. And one of the things that was just an awful shame in the public schools when my children were younger was, and they were homeschooled, by the way, but I noticed that the public school teachers didn't care about their looks. They did not care what they looked like, and to them everything was just low. It doesn't matter. It's just about the intellect. But you're an influence. You're an influence, and your appearance is an influence too. And we find children growing up not caring about their appearance, because not caring about really taking care of themselves, brushing their hair, just taking care of themselves and trying to look as nice as they can. Go and look at pictures of children and young people and teenagers and college kids from the 1950s and compare them to today, and notice, that they did have a sense of dignity about the way they dressed, because, it isn't all about the intellect. We're human beings, and we have physical, we live in a physical body, and sometimes that is the only thing that we can do is take care of ourselves. And so, but I will suggest that you do stretch your intellect and learn new things. I am excited about the things that I'm learning. I'm hoping to bring some things that I've learned to the table here and show you sometime. I don't want to say too much ahead of time and promise you something that didn't work out or that I wasn't able to finish. So I am learning some new things and quite excited about some of the creative things that I'm learning. And I'm also hoping, and I'm also making a list of what my goals are by the end of this year to be complete. And I'm not going to wait for things to get better. I'm going to go ahead and do the things that I have been planning on doing. And so there are a lot of things I want to talk to you about today in the home. So just prepare for the home. Show some respect for your home, and some great, it shows gratitude just to prepare yourself. And when your children wake up in the morning, and teach them how to take care of themselves too, so they can get in a habit that they will never forget and they will never give up. And I know that it's hard sometimes, especially on dreary days, but that's the day we need to dress up the most, is on a dreary day. And I was reading an old history book from the United States, just a real old book someone had given one of my children, and I was going through it and noticed something about in the winter, when people, basically America was very agrarian at the time. Most people were doing crops in the summer, and that took up a great deal of their time in life, and that was how they made their money. But in winter, when there was no harvest and no crops and no seed time, they would visit one another, and this is when they had their social life and their parties, and this is when they went to each other's houses. Can you imagine? They have to bundle up and go to somebody's house. And that was when they had their best social life, was in the winter, because in the summer, the fishermen were out fishing. You did things in the summer, and the lumber people were out doing lumber in the summer, and the farmers were out in the summer, and you did your living in the summer. In the winter, not so much. And so that's when the social things took place. And I was quite fascinated with that. But as a lot of you are home alone, and I did address a particular video for those who were alone, there are a lot of people who are very much alone. And for those of you who are alone, it's very important that you create some kind of social life for yourself, whether it's by correspondence or by email or by some of these other programs that you can use like Skype and Zoom. Very important. And I will caution you, when you're on Zoom or Skype, get dressed up, fix your face, fix your hair, because these are images that people will have of you in their minds, and it's just like having someone in your home. And especially as you grow older, that's why I tell you, young people, take care of yourself and get in the habit of taking care of your hair and your skin and your hands, because when you get older and everything starts to change and your skin starts to change, and you start to get a few lines, and your hair is not as poofy as it was, then you have to learn new habits that you weren't used to in the first place. So you got to start to learn to take care of yourself. So start those habits when you're very young about your appearance. And do that for the boys as well at home. Train them, because then they will never ever not want to wash their face and brush their teeth and comb their hair. That it will just be so automatic. And those things, it's good if we could breed them into ourselves. If we can breed them into our children at a young age. And the younger you are, the better you learn. But there's an old saying that you can't teach an old dog new tricks. But I would like to change that. And that it goes like this. You can't teach an old dog new tricks if the old dog doesn't want to learn. So you can learn, and you can come out of this, the other side of this captivity, better groomed, more fit, physically fit. I've been exercising, and I'm feeling a little stronger. My posture's improved a little bit, trying to lose some of those rolls around my waist. I think I might have made some progress in that, but we could also come out of this happier and more content, and with better goals and better values. Yes, we can. We can come out with better character if you study character. I had a few books I had brought out some time ago about character that I had been reading, and it's simple things. And you can read the book of Proverbs, of course, and it's full of it, full of the kind of character that's valuable for you and for everyone. So now I want to go to the homemaking aspect, and the only thing that I could think about, I have a pile of stuff to put away, and that's what's delayed me from coming here and talking to you, is I get the rest of the house cleaned up, and then I'll go and look at that pile and think, oh, I'm too tired. So I still have that pile there, but I'm going to do that after I talk to you. One of the things that I can do that I have found valuable to me is think of what is it I miss about society out there, and what is it I don't miss? Well, I don't miss pushing the cart, the grocery cart. I don't miss pushing carts in stores. I don't miss the awful, noisy music coming out of the intercom all around, and I don't miss the propaganda coming out telling you what to do, where to stand, and all kinds of things like that. And I just don't appreciate the state giving us instructions on how to do everything. I don't miss any of that. I also don't miss the unsettled feeling I used to have back in the olden days before captivity, when everything was fine, but I would come home and take me a couple of hours to wind down from all the errands that I had to do out there, and the people that I had to be around, and sometimes the rude remarks, and sometimes just finding a parking place. And I don't miss the race out there. I don't miss it at all. But there are some things I do miss. I miss the variety. I miss the brightness. I miss the ideas that it gives me. I miss going to places like Home Goods, where they had things that are on a great discount, and things that for the kitchen, and I do miss all that. But I have been able to replace a lot of it with shopping online if I need anything, and that has been really going back to the olden days, because we didn't always go out and shop for everything. Back in the olden days, we ordered a lot of stuff, especially those of us who lived in isolated situations on homesteads and out in the country. We ordered many things, and so I'm enjoying getting things at the door as though I am in a grand home and I'm being brought things. I'm really enjoying that. It's so different, and then my time is freed up to actually make some progress in my home. And I was always frustrated that there were some things that I just couldn't get at. There'd be a box or a trunk of things that I think, I'm going to have to clean that out someday, and time would go by and I wouldn't get to it. Well, I'm starting to get to some of these things, and there are things that have not been gone through in years that I'm really enjoying going through. I'm really feeling so much better about it all. Another thing that I don't miss is how grimy I used to feel after having been in the car, been on the roads, and had to be out. And I used to have to come home and take a shower because I felt so bad. And long road trips, I don't miss those. But I also enjoy the peace of my home. I don't have to listen to any kind of music that is meaningless to me. I don't have to listen to other people's opinions, and I don't have to be bossed around. Can you believe even the elderly are being bossed around by so many people in the corporate world, and they get awful tired of it. They treat them like the way I hear it, last time I was out was July, and I finally said, I don't think I want to watch this anymore. People were yelling at older people because they couldn't hear, or they were not standing on the right kind of line. And I thought, well, I just don't want to participate in that anymore. I don't miss that. I don't miss the bossing. And so I think that it's really important that those of us who are used to it, we're used to being at home. I'm used to it, but I also had the choice. I don't have to stay home. I've got a car and I can go somewhere if I want to. If I need a break, I could just go somewhere. And I remember in the olden days, the men were very, very thoughtful of their wives at home, knowing that their lives were rather more confined and more monotonous, and they would make sure that they got out, and would make sure that they would have some time away from the home out. And but how do you do that now that everyone's home? Well, we have learned many different things that we can do to replace the things that we are missing. And one of the things, of course, is ordering. We get all those things to the door, and then we have increased our communication with other people. And of course, we did not close church, so we still have our church responsibilities, and we still meet with people on the Lord's Day, and we still are in contact with all of them by text, and they are in contact with each other. So that's nice. And then the other things that we miss is being able to examine everything before you buy it. Now, some of the things that I order will be a different color, or just not be quite like the picture showed it. So that's another thing that we miss, is being able to examine it. So I would say that keeping yourself busy at home is just the key to feeling content, is just to find one or another thing to do, and balance it with the things that you like to do that you don't have to do, that may be leisure time things. Like a lot of things that I'm learning right now are just for leisure, and because it's fulfilling. And I think that you have to balance that, and you can learn to love your home. And I usually have quite a bit of company. Today I didn't have anyone drop by, so I thought I would talk to you a little bit about increasing your knowledge. And I have to say that you have to be a pioneer, because, we always used to think, well, where are the pioneers anymore? Because we've already discovered everything. We've already discovered the world. And what about the pioneers? Everybody can be a pioneer in something. You can find a need. You can notice a need and fill it and be a pioneer in it. And you can just aim a little higher and stretch your mind, but you can be a pioneer in something. And I'm sure that everybody has an idea of what they could pioneer. It could be maybe not so much an invention or a product, but an idea and a formula to follow in life, or how to get through a day in captivity. That's quite a pioneer challenge, isn't it? So, and I think I would suggest what you do when in your homemaking is write down all the things that you wish to accomplish in the home, and what kind of a homemaker you'd like to be, and what you would like the results to feel like. What kind of atmosphere would you like to create? Write that all down, and write how that will affect you, or how you hope it will affect your family spiritually and emotionally and physically. And just get one of those notebooks like the one I showed you, the composition book, and write all that down, and start keeping a diary of your progress. So aim higher than your normal achievement that you're capable of. Just aim a little bit higher in everything. I heard a sermon the other day, and I wanted to share 4 points that were brought up in this sermon. And many of us now have been home for a while. You start to get a little bit uncomfortable, because now we're having to deal with our thoughts, which if you're out in the world all day, especially at school or at work, you don't really have to think that much. You're not left alone too much with your thoughts because you're thinking everything that what they want you to think about, and you're concentrating on that, so your mind is not filled with your own thoughts, and you're being, you're going along with what you're supposed to be doing, what you're being told to do, but at home you're not being told what to do, so now you have to start to think differently. And so the 4 things that I got out of this sermon was how to look. And one of them was inward. Look inward. Examine, learn to examine yourself. And we were taught years ago in a ladies' Bible class to list all of the things you'd like to improve about your personality, about yourself, about your character, things that you would like to overcome, maturity that you would like to improve on, things you would like to learn. So that's looking inward. I think that's really important. And the other one was look outward. And for women at home, I think, looking outward, you want to look out at your surroundings and what you can do, but also outward on what the effect of your life on those outside of your home, but basically on what's in your home. That would be the most important thing. But to look outward is to look at life and look at other things instead of just yourself. And so that was look inward, look outward, look forward. And I think that's really important, to look forward, to think, okay, where am I going and where do I want to be? I mean, where am I going mentally? Where am I going physically? Do I want to improve myself? Do I want to lose some weight? Do I want to have more stamina? Do I want to be more fit? Where am I going intellectually? Do I want to learn a little bit more? Do I want to be able to grasp ideas better? Do I want to have more knowledge? And so that's forward, and to make a list of goals. And even if you never reach them, it's very fulfilling to think, hey, I could do something with my life. I could learn to write a story. As a matter of fact, I had a book, and if I can ever find it, because I only have 1,000 books, maybe 2,000. And this book was how to draw for your children. And how many of us remember having a child on your lap, and you've got a piece of paper and a pencil or a pen, and you start drawing for them, and then you kind of start talking to somebody, and the child will take your pen and point to the bang on the paper and say, draw, draw. And so everybody should learn to draw a house, a cat, a dog, a tree, a dish, a toy, a doll, a child, a person, a horse. Everybody should learn to draw. And I had this book on how to draw for your children. And that is so handy. There's even those of us who are grandparents now, you ever wish, when you had your children around, that you could entertain them a little bit by drawing, or keep them content sometime by drawing. I think that's very important. And so you young mothers, you've got a sick child at home and you're holding them, sit down with a little drawing pad and draw for them. Their minds will suck that in. That'll be a very important time and will help in their healing too. So so that would be look forward, learn to do something, and then look backwards. And the important thing about looking backwards is to be able to see if you had made a good story for yourself. And when you know that you're going to have to look backwards, then you're more careful about what you do. You're more careful about how you talk. You're even more careful about how you eat and how you spend your time, because you're making a history for yourself. Now, a lot of you who don't think you have anything good in your past can pull out some things that are good and write about them, and that will reinforce the fact that you do have value and you do have worth. Is so important. So increase your knowledge. And see what my notes, if I can actually find anything here for you. I want to read something to you, and it's by a poet, and I ran across this in one of my books. And this poet, her name was Ethel Romig Fuller, and she was one of Oregon's poets in the 1930s. You remember I've been reading Edgar A. Guest, and he was also, I believe, in the 1930s and 40s, and uh, wrote he wrote optimistic, cheerful poems for the American people. And this woman happened to be in Oregon, and she wrote uh, she wrote a book called Kitchen Sonnets, The Lyrics of Domesticity. I don't have that book, but I did find a poem by her, and well, it's not really a poem; it's prose. Doesn't necessarily rhyme, but it's written in a lyrical way that is kind of poetic. So I wanted to read this to you because it makes you realize it was from Kitchen Sonnets, The Lyrics of Domesticity. It makes you realize how people can notice the little things and make them seem so beautiful. So here's what, I don't know the name of this. It's called Today. Today I have spread wet linen on lavender bushes. I have swept rose petals from a garden walk. I have labeled jars of raspberry jam. I have baked a sunshine cake. I have embroidered a yellow duck on a small blue frock. I have polished andirons, dust the highboy, cut sweet peas for a black bowl, wound the tall clock, pleated a lace ruffle. Today I have lived a poem. Now this is interesting because she mentions spreading wet linen on lavender bushes. Now I remember a painting, I'm trying to think it was Edmund someone, I'll try to find that, and it showed these women hanging the sheets over bushes. And I always wondered about that. It was a painting that was done in the 1800s. I'll try and find that and maybe post that on this post along with this video. Yes, they would get dry in the summer and they would smell awfully good too. I have swept rose petals from a garden walk. And she said, I have baked a sunshine cake. Now that was a popular recipe back in the day, probably handed down from the Victorians. I'll have to look that up. And she said, I have dusted the highboy. Well, my mother-in-law had what she called a highboy, and all that was a very tall man's dresser. And remember when you had to wind the clock to keep it going? And then she said, today I have lived a poem. Now, wouldn't that be lovely if you could write down a few things like that? But I don't suppose it would be very poetic to write down that mess of dishes you just watched and all that cleaning up the kitchen and all that hard work sweeping. But there have to be a few little things that you could write down that would make it a little softer, you know, to think about. It's always good to look on the bright side. Okay, there are a couple of things I'd like to address that I have been asked about, so I'm going to go there. And the first thing is what to do with clothing that isn't dirty, but you don't want to wash it all the time. And I know what you mean because I've got this lovely Victorian blouse with all the lace in it. I don't want to have that in my washing machine all the time. And so what I'll do is I spot clean it. Now what that means is, and of course these blazers and things, I don't want them in the wash all the time. The washing machine is hard on clothing. It wears them out. What I do is I put a little bit of dish detergent that has no phosphate in it. It's like Dawn or some other brand, and I mix it with water and I put it in a spray bottle. And what I'll do is I'll just go around and spray maybe the underarms or if there's a spot there. And then I'll just get the sprayer on the sink and just spray the cold water on it and wash it and hang it on maybe roll it in a towel to absorb some of the water and hang it on a hanger in the house somewhere where it will get dry. And then I don't have to have that in the laundry all the time. You don't have to have all your clothes. I feel that way too. You know, some things can be washed out. I taught my children to wash things out in the sink before they went to bed if they wanted to wear it again the next day, you know, or just spot wash it so that they could wear it again and it would smell nice. It would be nice. And then I wanted to show you my teacup because I got to yakking away and forgot. And I don't know where I got this, but it's one of those Eileen's Reserve by New Anchor. I'm not familiar with Eileen's Reserve, but it's new. It's a new cup, and I bought it before captivity, and it matches the teapot behind me. And I think I bought it at a tea, a tea shop. It's not a tea room, but a tea shop that had a lot of these things in them. And it eventually, I think it went out of business. But so I bought this, and I hope that it matches. And so now I wanted to tell you that I was grasping for what it was that I like so much that is my seasoning of choice in just about everything that is heated that I prepare, any food that's cooked. And this is it's called turmeric. And I've even used turmeric. I try everything, I've even used turmeric on my complexion, washed it off just to see what the effect would be. But it's best when it's cooked, best when it's heated, and it just makes the food taste so buttery and flavorful. And I don't even have to use salt when I use turmeric, but I use a lot of turmeric. And also, I want to address a couple of things that I've been challenged on recently by people who have asked me or written to me about. And one is this idea of only wearing clothes that don't have a pattern on them and don't have any color. I don't. It's a religious thing with some people, but I don't see any evidence for it in the Bible at all. I don't see what color. If the Bible said you had to, as a woman, you had to wear a certain, couldn't wear a certain color, what color is it that it says you can't wear? And in general, the Bible's quite general about clothing for women. It says you must be modest, and after that, the choice is up to you. And I'm sure we can be immodest in, outrageously bright clothing that might not be appropriate, might be a little distracting. But in general, I don't see any biblical evidence for it, nor do I see women talking about it in the Bible, nor do I see any examples. What were the 3 things I used to say that you could learn from the Bible? Ways to find out the meaning of something, and it was by example, by direct command, and by inference. I know some people like to poo-poo all that, but that's always been very helpful for me. I couldn't find an example of any woman by name or group of women who were told, even coming out of Egypt, traveling with Moses, who were told what to wear as far as color. And I know that the Israelites actually had quite colorful garments, and all from history, and also colors were mentioned quite often in the Bible. I just don't find any scriptural. I think that it becomes a religious problem when people start to impose it on other people. If you feel religiously convicted that you can only wear black or brown or dark blue or anything where you wouldn't be noticed, that's up to you. But I don't think that there's any command in here to impose it on anyone or push it in the church. I don't see it at all. I don't see in any way of all the mentionings of the church that it's shown that it should be pushed on anyone. And anyway, for myself, color lifts me up, lifts up my heart. It makes me happy. And also, I perform better if I'm wearing some kind of color that I like. There are some that I don't like that I wouldn't perform as well. And now there's some people that just prefer to wear a darker color all the time. I don't say anything to them. It's up to them. But a lot of people get convictions about something and then they want everybody else to do it. I guess maybe so that they'll have more company doing it. And then the other thing that I was told was that older women were not allowed to teach theology. They could only teach Titus 2. Well, now, theology, I'm not real familiar with that word because in the church we don't use that word theology. And our ministers are not theologians. It's the study of religious belief. That's what it is. We don't actually study religious belief. We just study the scriptures. We study the Bible. We read it. And we try to learn from it. And so obviously people who believe that she can't teach any kind of, and it's theology, the study of religious belief. We're just reading what the words, what God wrote. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not so much, that just totally throws me, theology. I don't really want to be a theologian. I just want to read God's Word. I just want to know what's in it and what He wants me to do. And obviously people who say that women can't teach anything but Titus 2 have never been a homeschool teacher. Because when you become a homeschool teacher, you're going to be going through this. You're going to be showing examples of boys who rebelled and what happened to them. You're going to be showing examples of men of God who were strong, and you're going to be showing examples of everything, of right and wrong and all kinds of things outside of Titus 2. And you're going to be teaching them to your sons past homeschool, because then it becomes a point of conversation every time you're on the phone with them, or every time it's a connection you'll always have. So those who say that you cannot teach any kind of Bible outside of, this is what I think they mean, you cannot teach any kind of Bible outside of Titus 2, and you can only teach women. They obviously have never raised boys, and they obviously don't have older sons that they discuss scripture with. Because when my sons were little, I was the teacher. I was the one who taught them when they were little how to read and write and how to read the Bible. And of course, as they got older, they learned how to make sermons and preach, and I taught them how to become speakers, how to public speaking. I taught them a course in public speaking. And so honestly, I just don't see that at all. So it just, I think it's bad to put restrictions on people that the Bible does not put restrictions on. And I don't see that it would cause a woman to, quote, take over the church or take over, dominate men or anything like that by being able to discuss Bible with other people, especially in their own family. And so I wanted to discuss that with you. If you've got any comments about that, please be sure to do so. Now, I also want to come to the part that everybody always likes, and that's dealing with people. Now, in your home, of course, we know we want to have a loving relationship with our children, because we hope one day they will be our future social life. It might not work out like that, but we always aim for something higher that maybe we won't get. And you'll find that in life, outside of your own family and outside of your children, there will be someone. There might be people. Now that you're home alone, you're probably remembering a lot more. But there might be memories of people who have tried to discourage you. And probably as a preacher's wife, I got more than other people. But I just was remembering a few things. And it reminded me about communism. Because in communism, in order to defeat someone, they first have to demoralize them. And demoralization just means that you don't feel worthy, that they make you feel, someone can just say something that will cut you to the heart and make you feel ashamed to be alive at all, make you ashamed that you are taking up any space. And so that's their goals. First of all, they've got to defeat you, keep you from carrying out what you think is your mission in life, keep you from any kind of success in your home by depressing you so much that you're immobilized, you can't move, you just can't function because you've been demoralized. Now, demoralized just means you're discouraged, extremely discouraged to the point of depression. And once you get down that low, of course, you can't accomplish anything. And it was used especially to intimidate homemakers and homeschoolers, because people were jealous that they were home, or they weren't just jealous, they were suspicious that these people were robbing the system somehow by staying home. In other words, they thought their taxes were somehow subsidizing you at home. This was the weird stuff that was going on when I was a real young homemaker, and homeschooling too. And another thing that they would do is that they would get you to have a breakdown, criticize you so badly that you would eventually just start crying, and they'd say, yeah, well, you are crazy. See, you just proved it. And then recommend a friend of theirs who was a therapist who would help you. And I wondered sometimes if they were all in it together to make money. Some of these poor women really thought they needed their heads examined, but no one would ever tell them what it really was that they were mad at them for, what it really was that they thought they were mentally ill over. And that was the issue of homemaking and homeschooling uh, was political. And no one would ever tell the woman, you really shouldn't. They would tell her that they didn't. They wouldn't. No one would ever tell her they were aggravating her or unhappy with her because she was staying home and she was teaching her own children. They instead would attack her mentally and say she was off balance or something like that. And the idea was, of course, to get her so upset that she would have to stop doing what she was doing. And then they would send her to a therapist and a doctor for a physical and everything. And then they would get these professionals to recommend that she go to work. And I've heard this from women back in the olden days, even back in the 70s, that this is what people do. And another thing that they do, and this is learned, I believe, in corporate, in business, and sometimes it crept into the home. And I know you find it a little bizarre, but yes, I have heard this. And another thing they would do is smear someone and tell people around her in their church or in their community or even in the home that she's just not all there, and that she's reactionary, or she flies off the handle or something like that. Just something that's very general but makes people feel that maybe they're not so stable, you know. And then next thing she knows, people around her are not talking to her. People in her church are not talking to her. People at home are avoiding her. And so someone has smeared her to keep her from communicating with other people, and to keep them from communicating with her. And this goes on in business too. I often suspected that narcissism began at work, in the workplace, because the workplace is set up in such a way, in kind of like a pecking order, and encourages that kind of behavior. And then I was shocked in the 70s and 80s to hear that some of these attitudes were creeping into the home. And you have to really watch for that, because the Bible says that we are to build one another up and to love one another. And so when this kind of stuff starts happening, if you even get a hint of it, just say, well, you know, I don't believe that. I believe what God says. And God says that I am fearfully and wonderfully made, and that I'm worthy of His care, and that I have been brought into this world for a purpose. And so I just wanted to bring that to your mind, because in a way that's what the state is actually doing to us these days. Some of you that are living in one of these states that is rather harsh, and they try to lock everybody up and just about take their breath away and take their livelihood away and everything. That in a way is to demoralize you, to make you feel unworthy, to make you feel like, well, we'll just do what they say, and then they will be nice to us. And that's a very dangerous thing, because if you look back at the captives in the Bible, they didn't always do just exactly what their captors said, but they went to God, and they also, with God's help, were able to have the victory over them. So I think the other thing that communism, the reason I'm talking about communism is in homeschooling, we had a lot of books that were homeschool books, and they taught the dangers of communism, and we learned to hate communism and to love freedom, and to love the Bible. And communism is totally exactly opposite of the Bible. And one thing that communism will do is keep people in the perpetual state of now, of what's happening now. And that's not healthy. And that's why I said that I read to you these 4 things that I heard at church in a sermon. Look inward, look outward, look forward and backwards. They want to keep you in a perpetual state of right now, where you cannot think about your future, where you cannot look back and have a story of your history and of your past and of your relatives and all your ancestors and something to be proud of. They want you to think that those things do not even exist. And sadly, some children grow up like this, where they don't really know who their grandparents were and who their great-grandparents were and where they came from and what old country. We used to call it the old country if it was Europe, and they don't know any of it. And so communism would like to wipe out history and wipe out our past, and particularly do not like what we're doing here in reading the Bible, because that is also a history and shows us where we came from as human beings. And so they keep you in this perpetual state of the now. You go to public school, and every day is just a grind for those kids, because they want to just get through the day, and that's what they're doing now, but they're not thinking. When you're homeschooling, you're starting to teach them their purpose. So you say, okay, you're going to have a history. We're writing your history right now. You're living your history. You'll grow up one day and say, when I was a child, we did this. When I was a child, I remember this. And so the mother, knowing this, she's going to create these memories for them so they can have a history and they can have a childhood to look back on. That childhood is so important, because it's what will sustain you when you become a captive. That childhood. You can go back and think of creative, innovative things, and that happy childhood makes you stronger, I think. Is so important for children to grow up with a happy, carefree childhood, free from worry and heavy responsibility, and even in captivity. You don't need to let those little kids know that we're in captivity and all these rules. Someone was telling me about a communist country where the children were kept quiet by being threatened with the police, because if a child cried, the police would come. And I think that's dreadful, because they should be. You can still give them a happy, carefree childhood, even with all these stupid rules that are, treating us all like we're so dumb. And you can provide for them a happy, carefree childhood, get some good things to teach them, or look into your own childhood and get what you know and teach them what you already know. If they can read, if they can speak your language, somehow you taught them, so you're not that ignorant. And if they have learned to take care of themselves and take a bath and go to the bathroom and brush their teeth and everything, you did teach them something. And so try to give them a happy, carefree childhood, free from worry and heavy responsibility. And don't even wouldn't it be nice if when they got older they could say they don't even remember. They don't even remember the Blitz. They don't even remember any terrifying times in their home, and make these homes lovely places to be. And yes, you can still go outside and you can still give them fresh air. This is part of living your faith, your belief. Your faith is your belief. And if someone says you shouldn't be outside with those kids, say, but this is a religious experience. I'm having a religious experience, and my religion comes first. And I'm a captive of the Lord Jesus Christ, not your captive. And so whoever you're the captive of is the one that you're subject to and you're obeying, and that's Jesus Christ. So at that note, ladies, I hope that you got a few things done while you were listening to some of this rattling on. and I hope you will leave me a comment so I could see what you did. If you've got time, I understand that if you don't. And I hope to see you more often. And I'm going to this is what I'm going to do the rest of the day. I've got some orders to make online, and I'm going to call a friend that I haven't talked to in a while, see how she's doing. And we always like to bounce ideas back and forth. So I'm really looking forward to talking to her. And I am going to clean up that back room that's the storage room. I'm still working on those books and put a few things away. I've made up my mind to take a handful of books and go through them every day. It's just insanity to think you're going to undo a whole bookshelf and put it away in one day. And then I have some laundry to fold, and I'm going to cut out a new coat dress. I have saved this fabric for nearly 20 years that I wanted to make something out of, and I found it the other day and thought I'm going to finally cut that. and make it into a coat dress. You know, I've kept everything since 1982 because I just didn't have any faith that I was going to ever get better off, so I just kept everything. And now I'm glad I did. And sometimes I chastised myself because I was just a little too extravagant and bought maybe too many teacups, too much fabric, and too many books. Well, now that I'm in captivity, I'm enjoying them. It's like going shopping again. It's like seeing things I hadn't seen in a while. So, ladies, God bless you and thank you for your prayers for me and for all you do for me and for keeping me motivated. And I'll see you next time, sooner, I hope. Bye.